In today's episode of the Positive Worth podcast, I continue my Interesting People I Know series with entrepreneurs Tosh Jones and Trevor Chin. Friends since college, Tosh and Trevor have embarked on many adventures, both separately and together. Listen in to hear how they recently invested over $200,000. I'm your host, James Oliver, and you've just joined me on my journey of holistic learning, where I talk to people about the 5 F's in their life: field, family, finance, fitness, and faith. Like, share, and subscribe to help the algorithm, and you can also check out our Patreon page by searching Positive Worth.
I am known as Trevor Chin, and I own an auto shop.
I'm Tosh Jones. I'm a full-time mechanical engineer, primarily work in project engineering, and then on the side, we have a business which is TNT Machine Works, where we utilize CNC machines to make parts.
We all met around college time frame, correct? You guys didn't know each other before college either?
No.
Yeah. So between machine classes, engineering classes, which we dropped out of, or whatever it was, we all
failed out of. Let's be clear.
Well, I mean, I wasn't here to talk about my failing, but yes, failed out of. I went back and passed that class later, but changed majors all the same. But so starting off with you, Tosh, I want to ask you a little bit about TNT Machine Works, and Trevor, grab the mic at any point to interject, but tell us a little bit about what TNT Machine Works is.
Yeah, so TNT Machine Works really came around just as a culmination of, I started my manufacturing journey at the university.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might have been a TA at the time,
Mm-hmm.
or at least you frequented the shop.
Yeah.
And then as I got into it, I just kind of fell in love with it and took more and more and more. So lathe, mill, CNC, surface grinding, all that kind of stuff. And then as I kind of got to a certain point, I was able to TA and teach the classes. And then that's right around that time is really where I kind of got involved with Trevor, and we just kind of found random projects to do all the time, whether it's helping students make their parts for senior projects and just other stuff that they kind of wanted to make. Mm-hmm. We were kind of an outlet for a few of those sorts of people. And then probably the first major project that we really took on together is our journey with apple cider, making some automated equipment there, and every year just kind of growing and growing. And
yeah.
Once I graduated, he was still here in California, Walla Walla. I moved to California, and, we still did projects remotely. Half that grinder setup I shipped from California in a suitcase.
And real quick, just like in 3 sentences, explain the grinder setup, because I don't think people have any idea what you're talking about. And hold the mic just a little bit closer.
Okay. So in cider processing, the second thing you have to do after you wash the apples is you have to grind them down to a mash size. Once it's mashed, then you can squeeze it in a variety of different ways to get your juice. So the grinder itself is made up of inch thick, HDPE. It's, super hygienic. It's what they use cutting board materials with. We use it in the food industry a lot. And then we basically stack a whole bunch of stainless steel saw blades together to create 80 saw blades together to kind of create I can't really even say it's a Frankenstein, grinder, but you can definitely dump in 5 gallons of apples at a time, and it spits them out ground.
Yeah. See, just the visual of that. I mean, you say homemade grinder or something, and going back to the original days of me hearing about the apple cider, it was literally just a
disposal.
Yeah, just a garbage disposal.
Just a stainless steel garbage disposal that you had to cut the apples or the tip of your finger and make apple cider.
Yeah, so you started off with literally a garbage disposal that was clean.
Correct.
And new.
Brand new stainless steel,
But still that mental image of 50 saw blade or 80 saw blades side by side. I got to hold that thing once. It was so unbelievably heavy.
It weighs a fair chunk, and it does emasculate the apples quite nicely.
Yeah. And so when you guys are talking about apple cider, though, what was your biggest year of cider production as far as gallons?
The last time we ran, we did about 700 gallons, and we started at maybe 8 a.m. and we were cleaned up by 3. Put that in perspective, right? When we first started, we'd go out in the field and we'd go pick the apples in the morning. We'd been out there at 7 o'clock and we would finish at midnight and we'd maybe get 90 gallons. And now we're able to process more than 100 gallons an hour.
Good grief.
When we have enough people and, things are running smoothly.
Yeah.
I'll have to look back in time and see if I can find a picture because, again, the visual of this whole process is incredible. So the cider, and now I want to talk a little bit, going back to TNT Machine Works, and look specifically at some details. So I took a couple videos earlier just to show the size of the machine and some of the back and forth that the two of you were doing. So I'll overlap those at this point, but you're not talking like a homemade printer, not homemade, but you're not talking like a Canon printer or one of those homemade 3D printers that sits on a desk. I mean, the thing that's sitting right over there is a monster. It's huge. What did that machine cost?
The machine raw cost before you option is around $88,000. By the time we optioned it out with the faster spindle and probe and all the other stuff that we wanted on a fourth axis, we came in right around $180,000.
Okay.
And then from there, then you got shipping and rigging. Those are two separate things that cost another $6,000 to $7,000 a piece.
And Trevor, what were you telling me about just the forklift?
I think it was roughly $6,000 or $7,000 to move the thing about 130 feet.
On flat concrete.
On asphalt and flat concrete, and they take it off the truck, set it down, unbox it a little bit, drive it, and set it over here just behind the cameras, and it's about $6,000 or $7,000 to pay a company to come and do that for you.
And when you first told me about this, Trevor, I hadn't been talking to Tosh about it, but you two were inspired by another guy here in town, because you're talking a $200,000+ investment at this point, which, I mean, to me is like my heart starts beating a little bit faster thinking about spending those kinds of dollars. What on earth made you think that was going to be a good idea?
This has been 10 years in the making, starting with car parts, random little things, helping other students, maybe more than 10 years. Apple cider was definitely a big thing because there's been 4 or 5 renditions of each item that we have built. And I mean, let's be fair. We like to bite off more than we can chew. We like to...
Or squeeze more than you can drink.
Right. Or, learn how to swim by way of not drowning. And so we like to jump in the deep end. And honestly, we do pretty good work figuring out how to swim by throwing ourselves at things that are probably outside our grasp, including the learning curve with this machine. Tosh has built several and is working on another CNC in his house, in his garage. We cut guitar bodies. Like I think the last summer he worked at camp, we put his CNC in my garage, and I cut guitar bodies for a electric guitar startup called Wall to Wall Guitar Company. That was not the first thing we did together by any stretch, but that was the first like CNC thing we did together. And then when he had moved back, we started. There's a guy in town that makes these wine crates and stuff for, grocery stores nationwide, and he has a CNC and he didn't know how to program it, and I happened to be working next door, and I was like, well, I think I know a guy, and then we do the back and forth, and much like here where he's running the computer and I run the machine, that's kind of how that kept going. And while I may be learning the computer and he can definitely operate the machine, like that is the more natural dynamic currently, and that's been years in the making.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight thing, but if we like to bite off more than we can chew, like we can only stare at it for so long before you're going to click the order button and it's going to show up.
So Trevor, when you guys started on this journey, you were not married, and so you could kind of make the decision at that point. Tosh, you were married, and so you just walked in one day and said, sweetie, I'm going to drop $100,000 with a buddy of mine on a big metal box. How'd that conversation actually go?
I was actually floored at her response. we had walked through a couple guys. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional just because like this is what I love to do, and and my wife has supported me through all of this, and she is, when I came to her and was like, "Hey, I think there's an opportunity here," she's like, "Go for it, 100% do it." You know, there was. I mean, she's known what I've been passionate about for 15 years. Ever since I took the first lathe class and I fell in love with machining. She wasn't involved in my life at that time, but like finally getting to the point where like there was a real opportunity, to do something that you love, and I didn't really want to do it by myself. And like the times when he's not here and you're just working by yourself, you're just grinding, you're like, this is still fun, but man, it is much better to do this stuff, and it's so much funner to do it with somebody here. It all goes faster. It's everything else, but I mean, yeah, the conversation with the wife went really, really well, and it's been great.
Now, Trevor, back to you on this because we're kind of talking about how family has impacted this decision. We can send Tosh to get some tissues there. Was there any level of like thinking about family, or how did family impact your decisions over the years, also including leading up to this TNT Machine Works idea, as you've thought about being an entrepreneur versus just working for someone?
So I was raised by somebody that worked multiple jobs, and for most of my childhood, she sold a home, I don't know, anyway, party light candles from the house to people via shows in their home, back when that was a thing, back really before the internet took off and you could go to somebody's home and order, and it was customary to wait a few days and not order it on Prime and curse when it says it'll show up in 2 days and it doesn't get here for a week, and you're like, oh, this customer service is terrible, but back in the day when you'd order out of a catalog and you'd wait. And I grew up with someone that worked for themselves. To be fair, looking back now, I grew up with someone that I know worked from about 4 a.m. to midnight for most of my childhood.
Wow.
Did I realize that then? No. Did she take time in the evenings to spend time with me and do that? Yeah. Do I feel like I was neglected? No, but she worked for herself. 100%. That's how we could talk about, that's how we have the opportunity sitting before us for the auto shop, and that, at least from my end, like, our parents help us get somewhat where we are sometimes. And I don't know, working for someone else has always been something I did. She always told me I'd never be happy unless I worked for myself. But maybe happy is the wrong word. I'd never be challenged unless I worked for myself, because I'm too good at fitting into the role and killing that role and then getting bored with that role, because I don't have to think about that role. That role is what that role is, and there's no real big curveballs thrown at you on the daily where you're just taking care of stuff and, putting out fires that people never see, taking care of, in the auto world, taking care of customers that are mad because something happened, be it the shop's fault or not the shop's fault. Like, but both of them happen. I'm not here to tell you whether or not it did. Within reason, I will take care of it.
So in talking about family, something that you did skim over kind of briefly, but has been a reality for almost 15 years that I've known you, is that you were raised by a single mom. And so it wasn't just that your mom and your dad were working and all these things. It was truly, when you're talking about your mom, from the day that I met her, she was the sole provider in your household, and she was the reason, and all these things. And I don't want to skim over the fact that she's no longer here either, but really played a significant role in all of our lives over the years that we've known each other. And so we've talked about this several times on this recent trip, but a lot of the opportunities that you have right now, I would very much say are self-made. and yet are very much impacted by who your mother was and what kind of legacy she left because of her hard work.
I mean, it is fair to say that at this point in my life, I would not be able to make the decisions I have made had people not helped me. And to be fair, the guy that is no longer the R in R&T did help. He helped quite a bit. He helped me take the leap. Sure, he walked away and said, this isn't for me, which is fine. Like, that's your prerogative at any point. If this joker walks away and goes, I'm not making machine parts anymore, in 5 to 10 years, maybe I'll be like, yeah, all right, I got this. We'll keep going. But at this point, I'd be like, well, guess we're selling this sucker. Because I don't have the expertise to do this. Doing automotive is what I've done for 13, 14 years now. Like, it's what I know. It's what I'm comfortable in. It's the customer service part is just I didn't have to deal with customers, and now I do. And so we figure out that hurdle, and we keep going.
Polishing the rough edges.
That's right.
Yeah. So the family portion alone is really intriguing to me, but we've started to touch on, and I want to move to the next F in the conversation, which is finance. And so, real quick, because you're the sole person in the auto shop out of the two of you, financially, what was your thought process about, or how to ask this better, what in the realm of finances went into your thinking about going out on your own and starting up your own shop? Because I imagine there's more than a little bit of overhead since you own everything in view.
To be fair, I don't own everything in view. Employees own their own tools, but the rest of it is owned by the shop.
There's like 2 boxes that'll be in the camera angle, but then the lifts and the parts bins and.
That's fair. So there is quite a bit of overhead in a shop. I have honestly incurred quite a bit more because I have a standard of practice that does not allow you to cut corners. It requires a on-car brake lathe, which is no small feat. No, I didn't buy the cheapest one, but when it's $20,000 for an on-car brake lathe, like, that's just to turn your brakes. We get to charge $36 per axle for that. Mm-hmm. It's not a moneymaker. It's a customer service item. And I have a stiff, we will provide the best service that I know how at the time we service your car. Even though I think auto repair should still be called a practice, much like doctors who can charge you money and not fix anything. Like, I will do my best to fix your car in the fastest time possible with the best repair, provided you are willing to pay the money. And if you're not willing to pay the money, I will try to meet you in the middle, wherever you want to go, with what you're willing to spend for the best repair. Yes, there are customers that I tell, sorry, I'm not going to do that to your car. Mm-hmm. Because we just can't let that out the door. At the end of the day, I have to give a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty. But the overhead in the shop from tooling alone is significant, especially in the startup phase, because I am not somebody that slows down real well. And so we probably have, in the first 3 years, most of the tooling that we need for the foreseeable future. The large tooling items have begun to tail. It is less so an overhead item, but it is a large overhead item still, and will be for a while.
You mentioned a $20,000 lathe. If you had to take a stab at what your physical assets are at this point, I mean, what would be a dollar figure in here?
Not a clue. Like I could physically, resale value or what I've paid are two very separate things.
Sure.
What I've incurred in here in, tooling. I mean, we can run through stuff and I can tell you what the prices were for them, mm-hmm. but between $400,000 and $500,000 isn't that hard to get to.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's part of what a lot of people don't understand about things like an auto shop is the unbelievable investment in equipment and the incredibly high overhead that exists here. I mean, I owe a lot to you over the last 15 years of really learning why a shop rate that's $150 an hour can get you to a point where you can barely make ends meet if you're not getting the right jobs coming through the door. And it gave me a different appreciation for why companies charge what they charge. It's not my place to talk about this, but you showed me your books earlier, and for the incredible amount of income that you've had for this year, there's nothing left.
No, that's the way it goes. What I was trained since I started doing this is an auto shop is honestly lucky to make 5 to 10%. If you do not need any tooling, if you do not have a lot of warranties, or you somehow have a parts company, which if you do, let me know, that pays you well when you have to fix a part that failed for them, legitimately failed for them, because I know there's plenty of people who have failed and then they try to make somebody pay for it. Without just getting a replacement part, or, a parts company that actually takes care of you would be phenomenal. But, we charge $150 an hour. If I have a warranty and I want to go through the multiple hours of headache to get Napa to warranty that, which is one of our smallest parts suppliers, I will get reimbursed at $50 a book hour if I do that repair. And sure, they'll take care of the parts. My biggest parts supplier, other than the fact that my salesman is phenomenal and he will find ways to cut costs on parts, going down the road for us for a while to try and cover some of that labor. And I don't ask for anything that's usually under 2 hours. We just take care of it in-house. But when a 10 or 11 hour job fails due to a part, I need some help. Yeah. And part warranty just keeps going up. And I'm not meaning like technician installed it wrong warranty. That happens too. I mean strictly like you install the part and the first time you fire it up, it's junk. It's ridiculously high. I mean, I'm not going to say it's 30%, but 10% is not that hard. Yeah. I call and I ask what warranty numbers are on parts, and it's, I try to buy the stuff that's under 5%, but that's getting harder and harder to find parts that have a warranty rate of under 5%.
So when we're looking at the way that thinking about finances has impacted your auto part of your entrepreneurial journey, I don't think that you were a stranger to any of this, because we'd had similar conversations before. You'd helped run shops before, and what I'm partially taking away from you is, like, in spite of some of this headache, that ability to work for yourself, to control your hours, to control your environment, have driven you to the point of saying, I'm willing to take on some of the headache so that I can, well, for example, have air conditioning in my shop.
Yeah, air conditioning was a big thing. There's not a lot of auto shops in this town that have air conditioning, and we're somewhere that does hit 115 degrees in the summer. The auto shop that I came from, you were lucky to keep it 10 degrees under ambient.
Yeah, and I probably won't post this till fall, but just so people realize it is summer, and I'm wearing a jacket inside because I got cold. You guys are running around working, but I got cold.
It's 74 in here. It's not that cold.
All right, I'm a wimp. I'm fine with that.
you were in a hot climate for quite a while.
Yes,
and you're getting used to it again. But, but the AC to me is important. Not just because I don't like being hot. I mean, we can talk about that, but that's not it. Like, my temper flares when I'm hot. Your technicians' tempers flare when they're hot. Parts break because you're mad. You're hot. You don't want to work. I mean, you go out on the hottest day, you wait till you're drenched in sweat. You're trying to look at something, the sweat's running in your eye, and you can't see what you're trying to do, or you can't touch it because sweat's running down your hands. Like, and nobody wants to work on a boiling hot car that you bring in that's at 115 degrees. So we can keep the temp down in here. Helps everybody be cooler in more ways than one. And that's the biggest thing. Not so much the body temp, but keeping cooler heads. Everybody gets along better. Everything happens better. That's the biggest thing for me is, also with the CNC now, we can't have a large temperature variation because that actually does affect, like, other things.
Okay.
But that was, not the plan when we started here.
Sure. So good segue. So we've talked a fair bit about the auto shop. Now getting back to some questions for both of you on finance. When you looked at CNC,
You talked to me a bit about what you expected as far as an ROI with this thing. So you spent $200,000. When do you expect that $200,000 investment to have paid for itself to the point where you might start pulling some kind of an income off of it? I mean, did it happen in 1 month or?
Next week? No. The machine will be paid for come hell or high water in 3 years. It doesn't matter.
And so realistically, a time frame for not only paying off the machines, but then actually starting to churn something that you feel like you can take home.
I mean, the other thing that should be understood is we've wanted one of these because we make lots of parts for our things, be it apple cider, car parts, back when I used to put those together, like randomness for other people, other things. Like, we've wanted one of these for a long time. If we can make it pay for itself and we never make a dime, we'll be happy. Is that the goal? No, not in the slightest. The goal is to make that thing make money. But at the end of the day, like, our goal is for it to not cost us any money between now and when it's paid off. Our goal, clearly, by the way we reinvest money in it, because sure, we talk about $200,000 to get that machine in here, optioned out, set up, that kind of thing. That doesn't include the tooling, the fixture tables, the vices, which is another 30, 40. Like, it's another chunk of change to do the rest of the stuff that's over there, not including that what should be a mechanic's toolbox but is a CNC toolbox. But there's another chunk of change over there, and there's $10,000 in material sitting over there due to the style of work that we do, where we have to have material on hand or we can't compete fiscally when we call the local supplier that will cut us a piece and send it to us for 4 to 8 times the money of what we have sitting over there.
So Tosh, I've heard Trevor's side of this. I mean, what's your take on the financial aspect of the machine and your intentions with the business?
Well, we both have full-time careers, right? He is a mechanic, R&T Auto Works by trade, and I am a mechanical engineer by trade. That is what I do for 40 hours a week. So when we get done with our day jobs, we come here and then we machine. So first and foremost, we want that machine to pay for itself, just because we have so many things that we want to make randomly. It doesn't mean we're here every day making them, but if we have an idea, we can just do it. We're not waiting on anybody. That's like, for our creative minds, and to keep us, stimulated. That's what it boils down to. However, we would really love for this thing to be a full-time career, I think, for both of us. And when even just looking in, I mean, we've had this for about 9 months now. The first 3 months of that, we really didn't do too much. Like, we were trying to figure out how to get into the game and really understanding the machine. Part of our loan was that we had 90 days of no payments. And so that kind of really allowed us like 90 days to really figure it out before we were really like, okay, we gotta start pumping out the parts.
Was that 90 days once it hit the floor, or 90 days from time of order?
Once the machine hits the floor, powered on, and it's fully turned over to us. So once it sat here, it wasn't just that it was delivered, it was that the tech had to come and fully run through it, jog through it, set it up, make sure that it's good to go, and it's fully released to us.
That's cool.
I mean, to be fair, it shows up, and the tool carousel and the spindle and stuff, there's stuff laying inside the machine, the control panels inside the machine. Like, it's not ready to go. It shows up, and they spend 2 days putting it together.
Sure, but when I order Legos, I pay for it before it gets delivered to me, even if I don't assemble it.
I mean, different customer base.
Really?
This is a high price tag for a lot of sheet metal and a little bit of solid metal.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a down payment that needs to get made. One of the other things that really allowed us to even do this was, we had moved here a couple years ago, and then the market just went nuts, and so we actually did a HELOC on the house. And so instead of moving, we ended up with a bigger cash flow that we can kind of pull from, and so that's where we really pulled the first chunk of change in order to get this thing here. And so outside of just the machine payment, right, we both have some personal HELOC stuff to get there. So
Yeah.
as far as financially, the goal is to pay for that thing first, and then ideally, if we can be on the similar trajectory that we've been on for the last 6 months, like we've between quarter one and quarter two this year, we've doubled our sales in quarter two.
Cool.
And our workflow and stuff is just kind of looking and trending in that direction. And so we're really hoping to, by the end of this year, and especially by the time we get into the end of year two, to really see some of those like production jobs that are really starting to allow us to, make headway either on that payment or our own personal loads. Ideally, 3 years, zero.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we know a few people with these style of machines. And the common theme is somewhere around 2 years of owning it, you will stumble into a job that is fairly lucrative as long as you are a competent operator and you build nice parts. The jobs are out there. You have to be willing to hold the headache and eventually, it's not a guarantee, but there's a good chance something's going to come. The guys that finally made us take the plunge and we're like, yeah, you can do it in this town and, do this kind of thing. And we're doing it a little differently than they did when they got into it. But they're like, you can do it and we'll push you work when we have it. Now, they're not going to send us their regular clients. One of them has 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 machines by himself. He's one dude. And he runs all those machines, and the other guy has one machine, and he kind of does one thing for the most part and makes enough money to do what he wants to do and goes home at the end,
What does that mean? So, like, if I'm the guy with the 11 machines versus the guy with one machine, what's the difference in like net profits?
I don't have a solid answer, but I would guess it's pretty substantial.
Okay.
I mean, the guy with the 11 machines is not running cheap equipment. The guy with the one machine, mind you, probably paid significantly less than we did, only because of 2 years less of inflation, especially at a high inflation point. And also his machine is slightly smaller, didn't come with some of the options we bought, but also like that's not really the point. Like he got it at a time that we would have paid $60,000 less for our machine.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is just growth, right? Where do you want to go personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you really challenge yourself and you really push yourself, like stuff is out there, and the guy that has 11 machines, like he started with one, and then he had another job, and then he had another job, and then he had another job. And some of these things, when you start adding the quantity up, like it keeps your machine busy for weeks or months, or that's all it runs on the machine, and so when you get to that kind of stuff, it's just a machine that makes money on the floor. I mean, yeah, you got to program it and you got to do some of this other stuff, right? But like, it allows you to be a one-man shop when you can do that kind of stuff. And that's, from what I understand, that's the kind of work that he does. He doesn't do the onesie twosie work like we do right now.
Okay.
Like we're pretty unique.
Yeah, because I watched you guys doing the onesie twosie work this evening, and it was, one of you was constantly doing something every couple of minutes. There wouldn't have been time to do the jobs you did tonight on 11 machines. One of them would have constantly been sitting still waiting for you. But the mass production certainly makes a lot of sense.
But what would you rather have? Would you rather make $100 an hour and you have to stand there and maintain it, or would you rather turn the machine free and have it make you $25 every hour of every day?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not a good example monetarily. It's probably actually less than that for it to run continuously.
Sure.
But if you have, it's passive income at that point.
Yeah.
Which is king to some extent.
So one of the other F's now, before our final one of fitness, is faith. I'm really curious about how entrepreneurs and their journeys and different people in their journeys have been impacted by faith, whether that's a belief in God, whether that's from a specific religion or something handed down to them from their families. And I'm not here expecting any kind of answer. It may be a 0 level impact. It may be everything to where you've landed. And so I'm just curious to what extent faith has played a role in what you've decided to do.
I can give you a very I'm going to call it a vague answer because I am not in the same faith place I was even when I was in college, which is not the same place I was in high school. Being raised Seventh-day Adventist by my mother and my grandparents, I have a very strong faith. Maybe I don't carry all of the traditional SDA values, shuns, taboos that my grandparents carried. I don't believe in a lot of that stuff. Do I believe in the general principles of what the Christian religion within SDA provides? Yes. Do I believe that one of the biggest things is you have to live by more or less the golden rule? Like, you can't treat customers like junk in a business and expect them to come back. There are legitimately auto shops in this town that if they can get the money out of you, they will. They will take your money and they will give you the words
PG
that,
podcast.
yeah, words that, you know, a shoddy job.
Yeah.
And they will not tell you that, and they will sell you a new part, and it will be a used part. They, you know, that stuff abounds in the auto world, and it's sad to say. But you have to treat people how you want to be treated. And I use that within my daily life, with my employees, with my life experiences influencing how I treat customers when I overstep my boundaries to take care of somebody, even though maybe I shouldn't. When I push myself to do things within the business for the employees, when, I mean, I'll be frank, by and large, like, there's not a lot of auto shops that are willing to extend their business to do the things for my employees that they get. It was never stuff that I got as an employee. To be fair, that was one spot. And it's never stuff that I hear from the people that graduated with me that they get.
And so you feel like your Christian upbringing, the influence of your mother and your grandparents, has played into your decision to live that kind of a lifestyle. Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. Like, you have to give, not, I don't want to say you have to give to get, but you have to give almost first, because, you know, you're always going to run into somebody that'll take you for all you're worth. But I want to demonstrate first and foremost that I'm willing to give almost more than I have in order for people to understand that like, we mean business. We're not a joke. We're here to provide you everything that I can on the up and up. Mm-hmm. No shoddy business, no, you know, tricks. Sure, I've been accused of stuff, but at the end of the day, like, I can't keep everybody happy because I'm in an awkward triangle of your money, your car, and me fixing your car and taking your money. And, you know, we got to meet in the middle somewhere with how much you want to spend for the job you want to get versus what's the right thing to do. And people will always view auto shops as shady and shisty, and that's fine because a lot of them are, and we try to break that mold. But it's a hard mold to break when there's so many that go the other way.
Yeah. Tosh, what about for you?
Yeah, well, I guess a short background, right? Grandparents are Seventh-day Adventist. My parents are Seventh-day Adventist. I've grown up in the church. You know, parents being elders and, you know, children's ministry stuff. Like, I grew up physically at the church all the time. You know, I went through grade school, I went through, you know, high school, and then I went to, you know, Walla Walla, right? And, you know, so I think it plays a huge part. You know, it's part of the reason why we met, right? If we were an Adventist, like, we would have never met, right? And then, you know, when we moved to California, we knew no one, and it sucked, like, and it took us down to, trying different places, and it's like literally sitting in the pew, intentionally sitting, while people were walking by us, not a single person saying hi, and we finally found a few places, and that we kind of got hooked up with a few people, and things started kind of getting better. And by the time we kind of moved here, also I got hooked up playing music a lot. Just almost burnt out, like playing music, running sound system stuff, and running 2 different churches. Like it got overwhelming. So when I came up here, I was just done. I was ready for a break. And then it wasn't very long, and then COVID hit, and so we didn't really get out for a lot. And then everyone was just kind of reclusive for a couple of years. And now that I'd say we're out of it, I don't think anybody around here has any more restrictions or anything. It's been a bit more of a, okay, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What is our plan? Like, because we need to have a plan for this. Obviously, faith is still there. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, I still identify as, Seventh-day Adventist. I think the way that I personally view my life is a bit more of a, what's the number one commandment? Love people as thy neighbor. I'm not here to tell people how they want to live or what they want to do. I'm here that when they come and they ask me a question, I don't care who you are. I'm going to give you my response, not something masked by, what you do. You're going to get the same version of me. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can really do. But we've been trying to find the churches around here that also work for us, that have, people our age, where we can meet more people and get out there. And it's, it's tough to be consistent. It's just, you get done with a long week, and, the first thing you want to do on a Saturday morning isn't get up and go to church. So it's something you have to consciously tell yourself to do, and to get there. But
and so for you and your wife, has there been any added conversation of how you see this impacting you faith-wise, or anything that's going to entwine there? Because at the beginning, the only reason I ask is at the beginning you mentioned how the two of you had talked through all of those different aspects together.
I think that conversation is ongoing, all the time. I don't think it's something that you kind of have. You kind of set the ground rules once, or you kind of set what you kind of say. I think we've been consistent in what we've said, but I mean, as far as we've, the direction and where we're going is always kind of like, well, that one didn't really peter out. Let's try this, Mm-hmm. So you're kind of bounce around a little bit until you kind of find the right one. I mean, that's why there's so many different churches, right? I mean, people just, once they find the one that they like, they're like, hey, this is it. Like, I like these people. I like the style of music or preacher or whatever it is that makes it click, for mm-hmm. that. I think for us, people matter more than a religious organization. And so that personal relationship with others is really what we're seeking.
We've got 4 minutes left of camera time before everything dies, and I found out something died along the way. So, Tosh, could you re-give, I would say, just your cliff notes, your elevator pitch on how fitness has impacted this, and we'll give it to Trevor and wrap things up.
Yeah, fitness has made my energy come back. Not only the joy of doing this, right, but my energy is back, my drive, my motivation. A lot of rando pain is gone. Mm-hmm. Chronic pain from sitting over a computer for very long. So it's just overall made it more positive, and the more you do it, the more you want to do it.
Yeah.
So I think we're finally getting there.
All right. And Trevor, where are you at with your fitness journey through all this?
I like burritos, so fitting this burrito in my mouth is about all the fitness I get. I play softball 8 weeks, 10 weeks of summer. I run around the shop all day. I contort myself. We set 90 tomato cages the other Sunday. Like, I live a physical life, but fitness since college, since being a 2-hour-a-day gym rat in college, has not been the same.
Yeah.
I miss it, but I have not made the time to fit it back in.
Okay. Well, wish we had more time on camera. Obviously, the three of us could talk for a lot longer, because that's what we do when we get together. But thank you both for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Bentley, you're the star.
I don't have any treats for you.
There's a treat on the end of the stick.
Oh, that wasn't the trick I was looking for.
Mullen, get him. Rape. Oh, sorry, that's taboo. Oh, hey, look, my button's undone.